Thank you so much for that introduction, Uday. And along with space, defense is a particular interest of mine as well. So I'm very, very happy and glad that you could all join us today to take this conversation forward because we have a very good mix today, I'd like to say, of panelists. We have industry leaders, industry experts, and we also have an academic expert as well. So a lot of diverse perspective is expected out of this conversation. And defense is a sector that really needs constant conversation, especially given the current geopolitical climate of the world, where you fall asleep and the next day you wake up and someone's declared war, right? So it seems, unfortunately, that there are more and more wars today. And what does that truly mean for humanity? What does that mean for the industry? What does that mean for government? And what does that mean for overall policy? And we'll try to touch upon all these aspects. So I'd like to begin by focusing on, as I mentioned, the geopolitical landscape. And my first question is to Professor Stephen Maurer. So given your background in public policy and homeland security, we've now seen in the past few years, Europe really struggling with its reliance on external alliances as far as defense is concerned. There's now a reawakening, one can say, in Europe, especially in a great defense power like Germany, that there's a realization that we must build on our own and we must be as self-reliant as possible. So I want to understand from you, is Europe a cautionary tale for nations that have in the past relied too heavily on defense alliances?
Well, is it on? We know obviously that Europe has all sorts of industrial assets and wealth, and given enough time, right, they can certainly mobilize that, and presumably they will now. There is a slight timing issue, as you say, the wars have broken out. But there you are. I mean, history is littered with examples of countries that had to get their act together very quickly. And when they have resources the way Europe does, then one bets on Europe, I think.
All right. Then to Mr. Pankaj Chadha, I want to understand from you as well on the same, just a little bit on the same question before I move on to the next, that has Europe become a cautionary tale? And I want to get the industry perspective on that. You can go ahead, sir.
Yeah, hi. First of all, thank you for giving this opportunity to be available on this
The
panel.
honor is ours, sir.
Yeah, and as far as you brought up this issue of Europe, I had visited, with my National Defense College to Germany in one of the visit, and when the Ukraine war had started, and we could see that somehow the security was kind of taken as guaranteed. They had the kind of relationship with the US, and over last few years, the whole thing has changed. And then suddenly now Europe is trying to become kind of self-sufficient as early as possible, and a lot of money and a lot of regulations are started coming in. So I think that's the way the geopolitics is taking shape. It is becoming the defining era for self-sustaining, self-reliance, and I guess all regions and all countries are moving towards that, including us.
Okay, so Mr. Chadha, then I want to understand from you, with the pace of global conflicts and the way we see it today, in your assessment, what truly is as far as the next in defense is concerned, and are we looking now at an era that is comparable to the Cold War in terms of how quickly countries need to stockpile?
So I would say that stockpiling may not be the right answer for countries like us. USA prints its own money, so they have that kind of capacity and capability. For us or for countries, other countries, the question, it all depends. Depends upon what kind of risk assessment which they carry out vis-a-vis the geopolitical scenario they are in. But the most important thing, and which Vice Chief of Naval Staff brought out, is the ability to create a surge capacity. right, to sustain the war. So if we look at Ukraine, the war has gone on for a long time. Operation Sindoor was for a short time. Now, as a country, how do we build this surge capacity and how do we maintain that? And of which kind of, I would say, whether it is ammunition, whether it is platforms, because everything costs money and money is in a short supply. And it is not only platform, it is also the integration layer which needs to be kind of built in. So, if the initial part is the air side, but we have a very long coastline, so we may have underwater drones, surface vessels, unmanned surface vessels. All those things are all right, maybe for 15 days, 21 days, because there's a cost even to stockpiling, how much, where we keep that kind of a work. So, and it also again boils down to the kind of sovereign capability which we should have, whether it is the material, whether it is the design, whether it is the execution in a very short time. I guess all this needs to be well integrated, well thought of, and we should look for that if the time comes, are we able to sustain it for a long time? Do we have that sovereign capability? I think those are the questions which needs to be asked, and that is what is the next, which is there for all the countries as well as for the defense firms.
Okay, then I'd like to swiftly move to Mr. M.B. Reddy on that note when we talk about the next in defense. So how quickly then do we need to move from importing to say 100% indigenization of our defense supplies for our own security? Because today we're also in a state where if a country decides it can block all supplies to you, it can block all transfer of technology to you. And that's something that we've really struggled with, right, as far as some of our aircrafts are concerned. And of course, we're working towards 100% indigenization under our current government. But as far as the technology is concerned, I think France is the only country that has now agreed for some level of technological and informational transfer as well. But as far as the rest go, and for good reason, they don't want to share how they made the aircraft or what's the technology that's going in it. They'll just simply train you how to use it. So given the current geopolitical climate, how crucial is it? And in your assessment, what's the timeline?
Yeah. Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity being given to us. Well, actually, we represent electronics industry. So I talk most, about electronics. But in general, as you said, achieving 100% indigenization is really a dream. And in fact, if we could achieve that, I think, no one can stop us. But I would say that, it is to some extent impractical also because of lack of availability of some of the raw earth materials, some of the raw materials and all. Even in US, China, or even any other country that matter, they do depend on some of the global supply chain and some of the components, though they claim 100% the localization, but they have been sourcing some of the materials. So when it comes to the India, especially in the electronic segment, the major challenge what we have been seeing is the indigenization of semiconductors is going to be really challenging. And as we have seen during the COVID times, it is not only the defense segment, but every segment, like including, automobile or even other segment, which has got affected severely because of lack of semiconductor devices. The government started immediately the action of setting up foundries here in India. And as the foundries are taking up a shape, I think over a period of next 5 to 8, 10 years, I'm sure, we will achieve, let's say today we achieve about 40% indigenization. I think maybe after down the line, after 10 years, we would probably achieve 80 to 90% of indigenization. So it is a gradually building process that will happen over a period of years. But government is really working hard to build as many as infrastructure here to take care of these are all the components, the raw materials, where we were largely depend on other countries.
But just to follow up before I come to Smit, how crucial is then AI in terms of helping accelerate defense technology, any levels of production, manufacturing? Is there any sort of AI integration that is taking place?
Yeah, this is the area where, like, the countries, not only in India, but even in every country is now been focusing to integrate AI tools to the defense platforms. AI tools have been developed. Now, the challenge here is how to integrate with the defense platforms, and all is going to be a challenge. Many companies, including our companies, working in that particular domain. Like, for example, you take a radar system where with the radar, we detect, target the particular object. Now, with using this AI, how we can, get the bulk of data in a fraction of seconds. Like, this is how is going to be improve the efficiency, speed, and, the perception. So, the AI definitely is going to be useful, but the integration is something which will happen soon, and the tools are now being developed by many companies in India now. So what we, as a defense company, what we are trying to do is getting those tools and to integrate with our platforms and our products to offer a much better solution to the user.
Okay, interesting. And Smit, quickly coming to you, I want to discuss the future of warfare with you. You're representing the drone ecosystem on our panel, and we've just seen during Operation Sindoor, we saw the use of drones and the successful use of drones by India. And now we see it, of course, in all the other wars as well. The conflict in the Middle East, a lot of use of the drones. So I want to understand from you, as far as the future of battles is concerned, in your assessment, is that going to be more and more of a contactless system of defense and warfare where it'll simply be fought via drone swarms? Is that something that we're ready for? Or are we looking at something like humanoids who'll be fighting our wars? What's the future?
So first of all, thank you for having me over. I think very valid and very pertinent question in how wars are unfolding across the world. I'll give an example to explain what I'm trying to say. First wars in the world were fought with two people and two weapons, and both the people and the weapons were very close to each other. So people were fighting by hands or by sticks. And then as war evolved, people started going away and weapons started becoming complex and intelligent. And if you apply just that theory, that I want my weapon to be more lethal, more complex, and I want my person operating the weapon to be at the least risk possible, drones is the clear technology that comes in and says that we will have AI-powered, fully autonomous, fully GPS denied, RF jamming proof drone swarms that will go and that will determine targets, that will identify them, that will verify them, and then destroy those targets if required. And what better systems would someone want than these, where the humans who are going to operate these drones will be sitting far away in the hinterland and will be giving high-level commands. You don't even need to control the drone. You just say, I think there is an enemy in this area. Why don't you go find, verify, and if verified, fire and sort of go ahead. And all of this, if you can do with the power of AI and with the power of drones, why would you need anything else? And this will be true not just for aerial drones, but also for underwater drones and surface drones, and also for border patrolling at the ground. So when we talk about drones, it's going to be across all domains. And again, the future wars, of course, are going to be contactless, fully autonomous, AI-driven. And mind you, AI will not just be for sensors. AI will be for instructions, where the future soldier will instruct an objective and then the system will take over and perform the objective at a very high level, natural language conversation perspective.
And I'm assuming that there's already a lot of study that's being done on this. Is there any study in terms of how much of the human error element is eliminated with the integration of AI?
So I think more than the error perspective, imagine when you have one drone covering a particular area, you need one operator to look at the video feed and then identify a few things. Today, drones help you look at a particular area, find objects, and then they ask you to intervene. With AI and autonomy, you will be able to task 10 such drones. Well, the drones will do their task, and maybe when they identify the target, they just come back and say, by the way, I have identified one target, do you want to fire?
Which is precisely what Pakistan was doing during the war as well, or that was the information that was being supplied from the
AI
other side.
generated videos showing AI drones.
That drones were coming in to map out certain areas, certain parts of India. And that, of course, is a critical aspect. And I'm sure that's going to continue on as far as warfare is concerned. See, Professor Maurer, coming back to you, I want to understand from you, there is a slightly perceived darker side of the defense industry or defense manufacturing, where a lot of people say that wars are manufactured to benefit the defense industrial complex. I just want your quick thoughts on the same.
Well, it's in the nature of things that most conspiracy theories are false, at least if the society is functioning reasonably well. People do get paid to continue doing what they've been doing. So if you create a large industrial establishment, or I guess in the American phrase, when you have a new hammer, the world seems full of nails. But I don't think they want to fight wars any more than anybody else does. They would like to be thoroughly armed in peacetime. One can make a story that, up to a point at least, that's a formula for not having wars.
Mr. M.V. Reddy, bringing you back into the conversation, so since I am talking about wars a little bit in this panel, there's also a lot of conversation now about, while we're already in multiple conflicts on Earth, there is now, of course, a space race. It's not new, but the race is more today about conquering the orbits by launching as many satellites as possible. Your thoughts on the same? Where is that headed? In your assessment, what are the drawbacks of such a race? Does that require more global cooperation?
Yeah, this is, I think, the excellent question, I would say. Yes, you are right. See, future, that is going to be the, war. War in the space to have a control over the orbit. That's going to be a major war. In fact, if you see, many countries have a, of course, though authenticated reports are not available, but we've been seeing many reports and all, like countries have been developing many deterrents, like, to build, to damage or to, kill the satellites of other countries. Like, some of the countries, they're following soft kill options, like they're building jammers in their satellite to jam the satellite of other countries. And few countries are developing missiles which can hit the satellites from the orbit. So it's a very high, long range kind of a thing. So yeah, this is, as we have been seeing, the many companies are coming out to establish data centers in this space to have the full control over the data, the complete control over the data and communication. And they will have, whichever the country they set up in this space, I think they'll have uninterrupted, the command over the complete data. So obviously when war comes out, that is something which the other enemy, they'll try to hit that. So that is something which may happen. And yes, this is something which it is an interesting thing to be looked into that. But yeah, obviously, future, like, to be frank, like, 2 decades back, we never expected drones like a bird will damage in such a big way. Today, what we are being seeing, as during those days, we have seen only missiles. Now today, the small drone, like, what we have been seeing in the ongoing Iran war, like, drones are killing, like, to counter it, the other countries have to launch a very expensive missiles and all. So, like, these are all, like, technology revolution, and at the same time, the war will take to the next level only in this space. This is what I do believe.
Ms. M.V. Reddy, I'd love your thoughts on the same as well, that we're barely managing on Earth as far as territorial control is concerned, and there's already talk about who's going to conquer the orbits. So are we now very seriously looking at a war over our orbits, and what does that future even look like? Because I'll tell you why I'm asking that question, because I see usually a lot of cooperation as far as companies are concerned. So, for example, we had our space companies on a panel before this, and they have cooperated with, say, private firms in the US, in Europe for their launches. So when it's a private firm to a private firm sort of a deal, there is a lot of cooperation. But defense is a sector, space is a sector where governments are also critically involved. And the moment governments are involved, that sort of makes it a slightly murky territory in the sense that, one day you would want to conquer a certain aspect of land or space for your nation. That's the context of my question. What's the timeline? Yes.
So I would say the point which you brought out, that it is when it is private sector to private sector or company to company, it is easy. When government comes in, it becomes murky when you say want to occupy some space. But I guess as a country, all of us have to follow the policy or the intent of what government wants to do. We are not free to go and do what we want to do. And I believe as far as India is concerned, while the technology and all these concepts are moving very fast, we need to catch up. And that's where whole of the nation approach is needed. So we need government, we need, let's say, private sector, public sector coming in. And if I give an example, though it is a little bit different, but it is a model. So we want AMCA, right? So as a L&T has tied up with Bharat Electronics, right? So it is a typical public-private partnership, or we are doing involving DRDO also into our light tank project. So I guess that is the way we would be going, and it will not be a individual company driven aspiration to go and have some land at Mars, just to say that.
Right, absolutely. And I think that of course, the context is more applicable to the space sector because, like I said, I know of all the companies who are sitting here and they've worked with SpaceX and they've worked with a lot of the private firms in the US for their launches. So one does wonder that if there is a government-to-government fallout at some point, where does that leave you? And that was the larger context even for defense, that if there's a government-to-government fallout, where does that leave you? But I'm running out of time, and I want to leave the last question to Professor Maurer and to Smit. We have a lot of young people watching us virtually and also in the audience. Let me begin with Smit. Smit, if I'm someone who wants to now enter the defense space as an entrepreneur, because there is a lot of opportunity, what is the best way forward in your assessment? What advice would you give to young people who aspire to be entrepreneurs in the defense sector?
I think for young people who want to join the defense sector, it's very important to build with patience. You can't really sell to the defense forces in 6 months and 12 months and all. So realization of who your customer is and when will they buy and how will they buy is first step. Second, I believe people should not aspire to make something that someone is already building. It's a very bad analogy to start copying or start catching up with technology where other countries or other companies in the country have spent millions and billions of dollars. So think of leapfrogging, think of new solutions which are not built before, think of problems from first principles perspective, so that you are solving a new problem in a new dimension rather than catching up someone's R&D that they've spent last 5 years, 10 years and billions of dollars. And of course have a lot of capital, because defense is one sector where you need to continue spending money, continue doing core R&D and build in India. Today's world is a multilateral world. People are aligning with multiple countries. They're also not aligning with multiple countries. So it would be very poor choices of decisions if you build something for the defense in the short term while importing something from outside and while having very less capital. I think we need to do the exact opposite of these three. Build with more capital, build only in India, and build something that people are not building. And I think that is going to be the success strategy for someone working in the defense sector.
I think that's excellent advice for our young audience as well, because yes, there is truly a threat today of the global supply chains collapsing at any point. And we've just seen that in the past 5 years. Professor Maurer, last word to you, sir. In your assessment, same advice from a policy perspective, and what in your assessment is the next in defense?
I'm sorry, once again?
What is the next in defense that people need to be watching out for, and what are the opportunities in the defense sector?
I'm not going to comment on the opportunities for individuals. There are 3 people who know more about that on the stage than I do. I do think from a policy standpoint, there is observation, right, that the world is increasingly dominated by private companies in terms of manpower and knowledge. It used to be that governments owned all the WMD technologies to 3 decimal places, and they could just order what they wanted. I think you are going to see things moving more and more in the direction of companies doing their own regulation because it's too hard for government to do it from the outside. They don't know these technologies. It's violently obvious in AI. And the odd part is that companies have been governing themselves for over 100 years. The insurance companies in the 1890s set up fire codes because you couldn't sell insurance otherwise. The companies joined because they couldn't buy insurance otherwise. And all of that is now codified word for word in American law in all the 50 states. So there actually is recent experience in which companies that make artificial DNA adopted a standard that is substantially higher than the federal government's, and they did it over a competing standard by American companies, which was much lower. So that it turns out that did not stick because the American government decided to tell people it was the lower standard was acceptable. But it's a kind of existence proof that industry is used to setting standards for itself. That's a strategic lever on the problem that doesn't occur to government, but it should, because this is an important enough problem that you can't leave any part of the solution on the table unexamined.
All right. Mr. Chadha wants to make, if you can just add to that as well.
So I could not hear him properly, but what I just, since a lot of young students are there, I think as a country we need a lot of expertise in basic sciences. So whether it is a physics or mathematics, because when we are talking what next is artificial intelligence, it is directed energy weapons, it is hypersonics, it is quantum, right? That's where the defense is going. And that's where we need to develop as a country our capability. That's where the students will get highly benefited. And also they could create, their own startups. It would not need much capital. That's where I will end up. Thank you.
Right, absolutely. With that, I've completely run out of time, but thank you so much once again to all of our guests for joining us at NXT 2026.